triggering or bring up a sense of fear or panic. Um, but actually, this is what our practice is for. Our practice is not to be in a perfect, idealistic environment where everything is peaceful and everything works out and we, don't experience stress or difficulty. Um, Stress and difficulty are the path, right? So, yeah, don't need to worry. Does anyone want to share or ask a question, say something?
Question in the Zoom chat.
Yeah.
One was area, and I forgot the other one.
Well, and please, helpers, be at the ready. Keep a watchful eye if anything strange happens. Be ready.
I wanted to ask you if you could do kind of like a brief introduction of each, tradition and what are really the differences, between them.
That's a big question.
Yeah, that's a very big question. Maybe a chat GPT kind of question.
Yeah,
You'd get a better answer for something like that.
yeah.
I got a question here.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Oh, we we have someone just who was bowing in. Yeah, go ahead.
I had asked this on Zoom, but we got cut off. I struggle from anger, and it's based in trauma that happened from an early age. And I've done a lot of inner work, a lot of meditating, and it seems like the deeper I go, the angrier I get. And I'm just wondering if either of you have suggestions on how to get past that.
Well, it's probably a therapeutic um, condition. So I would imagine that therapy and having the opportunity to walk through that feeling and that experience and what its roots are, and to share about it would be very beneficial. Um, yeah, anger is difficult because sometimes it feels like it makes perfect sense, and that we should be angry, and that it's a kind of righteousness, like we've earned that anger. Um, but it only hurts us if we don't know how to embrace it and to take care of it. How to breathe with it and how to be with it without using it or doing anything with it or taking it on as being right or true, but just to feel it in the body and be willing to feel that burning, because that's what the anger is, right? It's a burning, it's a suffering, it's a fire that hurts, and then there's this lashing out or this involvement with it that overcomplicates it.
Bhante Varrapanyo said something that was very important, is that anger is a hot energy. It is hot. It is a fire element. So if you think about that as anger being a fire element, you have to remember that it will burn you first before it burns anybody else. it'll harm you first before it harms anybody else. It will cause you discomfort first before it causes anyone else any type of discomfort. We're not therapists, but anger is something universally all human beings we deal with. And if you think about it, what has anger ever done for us that has put us in a position where we can be peacefully happy because we've used anger as a tool to achieve peace? It doesn't work that way. Anger fuels more anger. Love fuels more love. And also disattach yourself from the anger and that fire element. And look at what it causes. Look at what it creates. And look how many places it is destroyed and burnt up because of one split-second decision. Instead of holding on to the peace that we have, we annihilated it for 2 seconds of anger. I wish all beings will be freed from such trickery of our own emotions and behavior to make us use love first and anger as a last, to even not even a refuge. We have a question here from my side of the story from Brother Sifu Brown. He said, "Please, could you describe a day in the day in the life at a temple? What time do you get up? What do you have to do? What is required of you? And sleep, etc."
I think you better take this one.
The day in the life in the temple is early morning. We wake up. For those who are immersed in meditation, we are already meditating. Some wake up 2:30 in the morning to 3. So you have 1 hour to an hour and a half of meditation. After that is preparation for the alms round, which is going out to collect our food rations for the midday. That starts about 6:30. That ends about 7:30, walking around the villages, the towns, down to the local market in a quiet fashion with mindfulness and breathing to continue to ask for the alms rounds. We come back, prepare for our lunch for the day or for that mid-noon, cleaning our bowl, and depending on if we have classes or other meditations, cleaning. It is not always that we sit in meditation. We have our own duties, washing our big robes, keeping our environment clean, not this one, keeping our environment clean, and ceremonies that we do. There are other practices that we do that do take mindfulness throughout the day. One of the questions here was, as a monk, how can you control your anger?
Well, I'm trying to live according to detachment, which means that I'm paring down my possessions. I'm paring down my involvements, and the only involvement that I really am focusing on is to like hold on to or make work with, get attached to, is doing good deeds, mindfulness, so present moment awareness, and then detachment. And in terms of relationships with other people or places that I go, it's also in that same vein. So I'm going to this temple because I believe that there's a good opportunity to make use of something to support doing good deeds, mindfulness, and detachment. Or I'm going there because I believe there are people practicing that very directly. So I'm able to go into the flow in the stream there. And I'm actively to renounce, to let go of certain things, to not bring certain things with me that are valuable to me and that I even could make use of because I'm prioritizing doing good deeds only, not according to conditions. Mindfulness only, not according to a particular place or particular environment, and of course, detachment from whatever conditions that come up. So, practicing like that, I can um, not get involved in those expectation situations so much where anger arises, right? Where I'm expecting something and then it doesn't meet my expectation, and I'm already a little bit flustered or already a little bit going through difficulty. And so now now I'm awash in anger because my expectation wasn't met. It still happens, but when it happens, I remember like this anger and this reactivity is antithetical to me healing and taking care of myself. And it doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong, or if I act out a little bit on it. I'm remembering that that anger is a fire that is burning me. And I don't want to burn myself anymore, regardless of if I'm right or wrong, regardless of it, if it's, we should do this or we shouldn't do this, etc., or even if it's helpful to use that anger. It's mainly that I'm understanding in myself that this is a fire and that I need to put it out. I need to water that fire with my attention, with my mindfulness, my gentleness, and just being willing to let go of my self-importance at that time.
I've learned that letting go of a lot of anger in my life means that I have to let go of the idea that I actually control things. I'm in control of the uncontrollable. I can't control people's moods or responses or reactions. I can't even control the inhale and exhale of my own breath. So the person asked about how I can control your anger. I don't control my anger. I see what it does. I don't try to control anger. I know what it does, and I want to abstain from it by trying to be around people, presence of mind. I want to be around things that remind me that there is something more important than the attention I have to anger. Anger is always going to be there. It's part of the human existence, but I don't have to indulge in it. Anger is always going to be there. I don't have to be around people that provoke anger to arise. I don't need to be in mindsets that always are telling me the way to solve the problem is by blowing up and destroying everything. I would like to say to everybody who is watching this program, I really appreciate and respect that you have the courage to come up and ask a lot of these questions. That are some questions might be really triggering for a lot of us. So thank you for being courageous enough to even ask and entertain these questions, even though we are not scholars, we are not meditation masters or academic masters or PhD holders. We are monks that have lived in the monk world, in a monastic world, and from the experiences we've learned through Vipassana and following the Lord Buddha, this is what we have came from. This is what we have came up with through our practice. And we hope that we are able to present that to you, so therefore you can
Yeah. We have a great question from Amanda for you, Bhante Panya, and says, Amanda, are you able to use your voice? Is your microphone accessible at this moment?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Oh, great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And hopefully my bulldog's snoring in the background. But I was just wondering what Bhante Panya's take is on enlightenment. And I know some Buddhists emphasize more of enlightenment in the here and now, and others take is more that it takes years of lots of dedicated meditation, and you eventually reach a certain point, or maybe it's both. So yeah, I was just wondering his kind of take on that. Thank you.
Tatu? It's a really good question. Through my whole experience as being a monk or in the monkhood, I never really worried about enlightenment so much. My whole focus was more about being better than I was 5 minutes ago and maintaining that 5 minutes from now. Not so much as being enlightened. I never came into Buddhism with the idea of I want to be enlightened. I just wanted to be better than I was 5 minutes ago and continue that as long as possible. I find that a lot of people get lost when they're trying to be enlightened. It makes them feel like they're doing I see them doing too much or not being natural, and I feel that that makes them too stringent in my case. So I just figured if I'm doing 5 minutes better than before, I'm closer to enlightenment than I was 5 minutes ago. And I hope that kind of answered your question. I'm sorry to make it seem so. I hope that that did kind of make sense to you. I'm sorry if it did. If it wasn't what you were asking for.
No, it did make sense. Thank you.
Question in the same sense, if I can say that, Amanda, about your response. You said that you choose to be better, but what about if you have an experience, spontaneous experience, or after a lot of meditation and you feel enlightenment? So you are experimenting something that you were not before, and maybe you don't want to continue that experience because you don't think it's a good way, but when those things happen, it's something that could change completely your way of thinking. And what are you doing? How are you dealing with that? Because yeah, it's like the life is better. You're not in the there is no more contradiction, no more nothing that is painful. So how could we not want to reach that? I don't understand.
Was that question directed at directly me or Bhante Varrapanyo? I'm sorry. Was it for you?
What do you want to?
I
What do
say
you
the
want?
two,
Go ahead, Sonia.
I mean the two of you, if you have that experience.
I think she's talking about sensual pleasure or sensual desires that arise in meditation. What do you do with that? Feelings of bliss and happiness through meditation.
I'm not sure what enlightenment is.
Yeah, I don't.
And I have not, maybe this is not clear to say, but I'm not sure I've ever had any special experiences that are more special than this experience. And is that enlightenment? Probably not, but it's certainly interesting. And I feel there's a lot of compassion that arises out of that spontaneous recognition of the present moment experience without contradiction. Um, as far as grasping onto experiences of enlightenment or these like deep, special, meaningful experiences, um, I think that we can be inspired by experiences without being burdened by them. And that even though you enjoy something, um, you shouldn't let it weigh you down. You shouldn't carry it around with you unless you're making use of it. Um, I've heard it said that it's like we have many enlightenment experiences, some big, some small, and maybe there is this enlightenment like what the Buddha had, and I think that's also quite possible and reasonable. You know, this state of total non-contradiction and peace, freedom, right? Peacedom, peacedom. That sounds nice. That sounds right. Right, to enter the kingdom of peace. And I think that that is possible, and that there are people very, very far on that spectrum that are out there, and that it's ordinary, right? It's peace, it's freedom, it's ordinary. It's something we all nourish ourselves on, moment by moment, day by day. Otherwise, how can you get through if you don't have that peace and have that sense of freedom, right? That sense of non-conditional safety, because there's an inkling inside that's like, I'm not in control of this situation. I'm not in control of this body. Being in Southeast Asia, I'm sure Bhante Panya can attest as well, staying in Cambodia and Thailand and living, in forest monasteries or in rural areas. You eat the wrong bowl of soup or the wrong raw veggies, and you're hospitalized. You're out of it for a week. With food poisoning, where your body is just completely shutting down. So it's a kind of enlightenment to get into the weeds and to know that that's like the body is impermanent, and the body is kind of a more like a corpse than it is a golden Jesus image or a golden Buddha image that doesn't change. We're more like corpses to be. So recognizing that and remembering that, kind of getting into the weeds about that, can be helpful as much as it remembers us to not carry around any baggage. Not even the body, not even the mind, to be something to attach to or something carry around with us. And for me, there's something about enlightenment in there. So I hope I can know more directly in my life as I move forward. I can say, oh, this is enlightenment. I know some monk that they can hold up a stick and say, here it is, and that must be such a joy. But I'm in more of a simple situation, so I like what Bhante Pani said. I don't think about it too much. I try to take care and improve is one way to say it, but also to detach and to free and to release.
I would say, as far as enlightenment is concerned, that I think you might be talking about the sense feelings that you're experiencing during meditation. Some things are pleasurably, they feel amazing. When you're doing meditation, sometimes you knock on the door of things that you've never really felt, because you've never opened yourself up to actually experience the feelings that you have. But remember what it is. It is a feeling, and feelings come and go. Don't get stuck there. There's always going to be better. The more that you climb the mountain of meditation, it's going to open up different avenues. It's going to open up different doors and feelings in your mind, in your body, and in your thought process. Don't cling to it. And don't expect it to be there every time you meditate. And don't expect it not to come when you meditate. The present moment is where everything happens right here and there. When a feeling arises, note it in your mind there is a feeling that has arisen, and that's all you give it. Because if you chase after that feeling, it is going to take you down the wrong path of meditation, down the wrong road of meditation, where your meditation becomes reaching and grasping after, and that's where delusional meditation starts to take foothold, take place in your practice. If a feeling feels good, note that it feels good and continue on with mindfulness, continue on with your breath, and keep skyrocketing forward. And good job. Keep doing it. You're doing well. Just keep going forward regardless of how you feel. You've done a good job. Keep going. Sadhu.
Okay, we have some other questions by our wonderful audience here.
You too.
Wonderful participants. You can maybe check on YouTube and see if there's any comment there.
I have a question from Brother Sifu Brown. He said, do the Vedic script encompass your intellect? Maybe we might be talking about that.
Do the Vedic scriptures encompass my intellect?
Yeah.
My intellect is encompassed by coconut water. So I'll take a drink.
As far as me, I don't know much Vedic script. It doesn't mean it's not important. I just haven't really came across much of it. We use a language called Pali, which is close to Sanskrit, or brother or sister, or a relatively close language of Sanskrit, which is the Pali, or the language of the Buddha. I don't know enough of it, but we do chant in it, and it has definitely helped get me into a meditative state while chanting. That's about as far as I can go with that. But I have listened to the Vedas before. They're very beautiful too. You ever listened to the Vedas before?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question. So when you encounter suffering, like any suffering, how do you encounter it? Like I guess with compassion. Like how do you meet your own suffering? Like what is the attitude you look into suffering? I guess you need compassion, but what else? How do you because most of us run away from suffering, don't want to feel suffering. So what is it? What makes it that you can go through it? What are the ingredients?
Overcoming suffering.
That's my question.
For the attitude to face suffering, the attitude to embrace suffering.
Is that a question for me?
Well, I'll take a shot. I think Thich Nhat Hanh is some of the best information on this topic, and also Ajahn Brahm when he talks about kindfulness. So it's kindness and mindfulness together. So awareness of what's happening in the present moment, and understanding that there is suffering. That's like there is suffering. An awareness of what's happening in the present moment, and according to what you are aware of in the present moment, meaning your attention is offered to, you bring kindness with that. So we can say a gentleness, a flexibility, an openness, a sweetness, right, to ourselves, to our suffering. A very simple example, but also a kind of a power and a force as well to endure and to be with. So comes up very clearly for me about when I am sitting in meditation, formal meditation, my legs are crossed, so they start to hurt in a particular way. The pain starts to build up, and the tension in the legs in certain areas starts to build up, build up, build up. So I try to practice to sit with that and be with that and breathe with that, not to fight with it, but to be aware of it and be kind to it and relax it with my, my willingness to be aware of it and be kind to it and not fight with it just because it feels unpleasant. But in that, right, in that is not just meditating or this suffering or that suffering or me or my or I, but it's this just completely holistic, open, compassionate approach. Just the sweetest approach of, okay, move your legs. Don't put yourself through unnecessary difficulty. Go for a walk, relax, lay down. Ajahn Brahm talks about during his retreats, at the beginning of his retreats, he will let people just sleep. He'll tell them to go and, sleep because they're so tired, they don't get rest in their normal lives. So maybe 1 or 2 days, people are just going to sleep. And then they come back to meditate for the rest of the retreat. So it's this full spectrum kindness and sweetness that is empowered by the openness and the effervescentness, the spontaneousness of our present moment experience. Right, just to take care and to endure. So maybe that's a lot to say about it. But for me, it's a real sweetness. It's a childlike quality, or even a parental mind, the correct parental mind for a child, where there's your role there is to give the spaciousness for play and exploration and failure, right? And for difficulty to be there. And when that difficulty arises, when that child is to cry and to suffer, to confuse, you just to love and to embrace and to go slowly. But also not to take too seriously, because children cry. This body feels pain. This mind gets confused. This mind suffers. I don't need to take that so seriously. I just need to embrace and to be to allow myself to be a baby and to hold that baby and to walk with that baby, to sing to that baby and not overthink it.
You said something that was very important. You said the word suffering a few times in your sentence, in your question. According to Buddhism, what is suffering? Suffering is ignorance. Suffering is the act, the speech, the thought of something that is of ignorance, what we call avijja, a dark underlying ignorance. So what is the measure? What is the counter effect of, or the counteract of ignorance is wisdom. So whether the suffering is from yourself or from someone else or from anything else, what counters ignorance is the delight in wisdom, is the expansion of wisdom inside of ourselves, our speech, our actions, and our thought. So what that means is not book knowledge, not knowing. Knowing is not wisdom. That's only information. It is the application of the information that goes through the body and the mind, the heart, that opens yourself up for you to take that wisdom, to use it against ignorance that causes suffering. You have a beautiful question, and it was very appropriate. So that is what we are taught. Thank you. Dude, this thing is so hot, man. I'm sweaty. It's so hot. It's super hot. You want
Wool.
this?
No, I don't want that. It's wool.
It's pretty hot. These robes get hot, by the way. I do want to let you guys know that. It might look nice, but these robes get pretty hot.
I don't believe that the Pali language is close to Nepali language,
Oh,
the Nepalese language, but um, maybe it is. I don't know. And Vedic texts usually relate to Hinduism, and while Buddhism did come up in the Buddha's enlightenment and the Buddha's teaching and sharing out, and the the formalizing of Buddhism happened in the same area that the formalizing of Hinduism happened. So there are some similarities. Buddhism is quite a distinct school and tradition. So, Ajahn Brahm, Thich Nhat Hanh, the book No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Transforming Suffering, these are going to be very directly representative of Buddhism and not really have Hindu references or a Hindu um, pointer in there. They're not referencing the Vedas, they're referencing the Pali scriptures, as Bhante Varrapanyo said.
very true.
Okay, do we have any final question? All right. So I want to address the situation with when we have a meeting, and it's happened a couple of times before, because this is the internet and we are on the front lines of opening out and widening out and broadening out for all, not just for particular people. Sometimes there are immature individuals who come in and maybe play loud noises or some disturbing image or something like that. People try to disrupt. And it's really easy to get carried away by our trauma and by disruption and by the negative experience, right? The negative aspect of ourselves or the negative aspect of someone else. But we so often forget the positive aspects that are there. We always are hyper fixating on the negative. So for 1 out of every 100 meetings, when someone comes in and disturbs this sacred space, right? Look at all the people who are here right now, in this Discord call, watching live on YouTube, and we're all doing this spontaneously. This isn't a program that's being advertised and set up weeks in advance. We're tuning in, we're coming together. So there's so much more positivity and mutual support and companionship and life of positivity and Sangha here than there is anything else. And it's really easy to ignore that, because maybe we have the tendency to ignore that within ourselves, but also how often are we having intimate gatherings with 10, 20, 30 other people to meditate and to share from our heart and to listen deeply. So this is a place where we're maybe entering into the unknown. And as we notice the negative, or we notice the difficulty or the fear, it actually can be a reminder for us to take a closer look at what's actually here, where the power actually is here, right? And there's nothing to be confused about in that regard. We're all here for a reason, and it's not a vague reason. Okay. So in finishing up, I think we'll do just a short metta prayer, and we'll finish up with 3 sadhus together. Okay? So we can all bring our hands together, and you can repeat after me. May I be well, happy, and peaceful.
May I be well and peaceful.
May I be safe and free from fear.
May I be safe and free from fear.
May my mind be healthy and wealthy.
May my mind be healthy and wealthy.
May my heart be open and free.
May my heart be open and free.
May this peace and this freedom be shared with all beings.
May this peace in this moment be shared with all beings.
May all of my sufferings, mistakes, and errors be let go of.
May all my mistakes and errors
May all of the mistakes and errors of others be forgiven.
may all the mistakes and errors of others be forgiven.
May my heart be open and full of joy.
May my heart be open and full of joy.
May my openness spread out in all directions.
May my openness spread out in all directions.
May my freedom be limitless and bright.
May my freedom be limitless and bright.
May all beings find peace and happiness.
May all beings find peace and happiness.
May all beings be forgiven.
May all beings be forgiven.
May I be forgiven.
May I be forgiven.
May you be forgiven.
May you be forgiven.
May all beings be forgiven.
May all beings be forgiven.
Sadhu.
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 Sadhu. Sadhu.
Okay, my dear friends, thank you all so much for being here. And don't hesitate to reach out to one another, to this space, to me directly. And let's continue supporting one another and healing ourselves and growing on the path, okay? Thank you all so much.
Atnamotana. Atnamotana. So sleepy.